Okay, so this morning we're going to do a meditation called Mindfulness of Breathing, and it's basically about just following the breath, and following the breath helps the mind to calm down. So I just wanted to say a little bit about our minds, our ordinary busy minds to start off with. We have these minds, don't we? Morning, Deborah. Morning, Kate. We have these minds that constantly are on the move. They're like a small child. This is what I think my mind's like. It's like a small child, constantly either asking questions, giving a commentary on something, feeling fed up, wanting something, not wanting something else, constantly blathering away at us, and it gets really tiresome. I think we long, we may not even know it, but we long for some sense of peace from this constant chattering of our minds. So I want you to just try an experiment now. Don't know if this will work, but just want you to try something. So just close your eyes and just listen to what's going on for the next few seconds. Not trying to stop any thoughts, just noticing them coming and going. Now, ask yourself a question, and you need to ask it yourself. What is my next thought? Okay, you can open your eyes. So what might have happened then, when you asked the question, what is my next thought, you might have found that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, just a sense of no thought, because that question tends to throw the mind. It doesn't know how to answer it. So that state where there was no thought, did you actually know there was no thought? I bet you did. I bet you could see, even though you weren't thinking, you still had a sense that there was no thinking going on. Okay? And if it didn't happen that time, try it again sometime, not now. But this space between thoughts, when there is no thought going on, is called awareness or mindfulness, true mindfulness. It's an awareness of our being. It's who we are. It's actually who we are, but it gets lost. It gets covered up with thinking and all these stuff that goes on in our minds. So it's a good idea just to appreciate this, that this is our true nature, this quietness, this awareness that knows what is happening. And it's always there, but we don't notice it because it's covered up with all the stuff that the mind throws on top of it. So what we're trying to do in meditation, and particularly this meditation, is to let the mind settle so that we can experience awareness of our lives in this moment, and awareness of other people, and awareness of what's happening, rather than being constantly tied up with the thoughts in our head about the past and the future, about our anxieties and regrets and plans and hopes. All that gets in the way of actually seeing our lives in this moment. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's, if we can do that, that is where happiness lies. That is where true contentment and a sense of well-being lies. Just being in the moment with this freedom from the constant chattering of the mind. Now, it's not going to happen today, probably, or next week. So we have to keep meditating. If we keep meditating, if we keep training our mind to settle and to settle and to settle, little by little, then as time goes on, our minds will just begin to change. They'll have a different nature to them. They won't be so busy. There will be a lot more silence and peacefulness and contentment. Now, doesn't that sound good? And so it's really worth meditating regularly and allowing that to happen. And it will happen as long as we keep on meditating. So we're going to start. I've talked enough. So welcome to everybody who's joined since, and welcome to anybody who's watching the recording of this. We'll just begin in the usual way by making sure that we're comfortable in our posture, whether we're lying down or sitting on a chair or sitting on a cushion. Doesn't matter. Just make sure you're fully comfortable and that you can remain comfortable for the next half hour, 35 minutes or so. So you can do this with your eyes closed or slightly open, whichever you want. And just beginning by taking stock of ourselves. Emotionally, how are we? Mentally, what's our mental state? There's a lot going on or not very much. And how are we physically? And it doesn't matter whether any of that is good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. It's just where we're starting from. So we begin with a complete acceptance of how we are. This is what we can do the whole of our time through our lives, is always have a sense of acceptance for where we are. Whatever it's like, it's where we are. Not trying to change it, not trying to grasp hold of anything or push anything away. Just being where we are with a sense of kindness and acceptance. Feeling the weight of our bodies pressing down on the bed or the floor or the chair or the cushion, and just allowing gravity to hold us. Just giving up our weight to whatever we're lying or sitting on. Just feeling the sense of our being here this Saturday morning. And bringing awareness, attention to our chest area, rising and falling as we breathe. And just dropping our awareness down to the bottom of the rib cage in the center. This is the sternum. And behind here, behind the ribs, is our heart center, our soft spot, the place where positive emotions arise, where we feel good sometimes. So you might just notice a warm, tender, pleasant feeling here, particularly as you breathe in. And if you don't, then try bringing somebody to mind that you love, or maybe a pet, or remembering a time when you were blissfully happy. So don't worry if you can't feel anything here, but if you can, just notice it and allow it to grow. And continuing to notice the rhythm of the breath and any pleasant sensations. So we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing. And in the first stage, we begin by following the whole of the out-breath from beginning to end. And if we wish, we can drop a number at the end of each out-breath, beginning with 1 and then 2 and so on up to 10. And when we've counted at the end of 10 out-breaths, starting again at 1. So the chances are you won't get to 10, you might not even get to 2, and that's okay. So at some point you'll be distracted by a thought. And that's okay. And as soon as you notice you've been distracted, just rejoice a little that you've noticed that you've been distracted. And very patiently, very kindly, come back to the out-breath, following it from beginning to end. And it doesn't matter how many times you get distracted, just each time notice and come back to the out-breath. And the counting, if you want to count. Just counting right at the end of each out-breath, following each out-breath from beginning to end. And not worrying about any distractions. It's what the mind does. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. So the main thing is when it happens, just noticing that you've come back and be happy about that. And patiently come back to following the out-breath. So if you're counting, just dropping the counting for a moment and just taking stock of how you are. If you're not comfortable, getting comfortable again. And then when you're ready, we're going to start counting just before each in-breath. And following the in-breath from the beginning to the end. Really concentrating on the in-breath this time. So beginning with 1, and then 2, and so on up to 10, and then beginning again from 1. And if and when we get distracted, just patiently, kindly coming back to following the in-breath and counting just before each in-breath, if that's helpful. It's not a problem if you're distracted, so not beating yourself up in any way. You can't do this wrong. All we're doing is we're just noticing when we're distracted and coming back to the in-breath and the counting. And just always having a sense of kindness to our tendency to be distracted by the mind. So in the third stage, we're going to just drop the counting that we've been doing, or that some of us might have been doing. And we're going to just move our awareness to the upper body, or to the body as a whole if we want, but to the upper body in particular, the whole of the rib cage expanding and contracting as we breathe in and breathe out. Noticing the movement to begin with. And then we might notice the breath coming into the lungs and out of the lungs. Very definite sensation, quite a pleasant, rhythmical sensation. Trying not to do too much effort, just enough to stay aware as much as possible of the movement and sensations in the chest. Just allowing the body to breathe as it wishes, not trying to direct the breathing in any way. And when you notice you've been distracted, just patiently coming back to the sensations and feelings in the chest. If you like, you can widen this part of the meditation out to the whole of the body, just noticing where you can feel the movement of the breath. Maybe in the arms, the legs, the head, the belly, the abdomen. In the fourth and final stage, we're going to bring our awareness up to the area around our nostrils or upper lip, whichever place we're breathing in from, and just noticing the delicate sensations on the skin of the nostrils or the skin of the upper lip, and just really homing in on that, being curious about how it feels without thinking about it, just noticing the actual experience as much as possible. You might notice the temperature in your experience. Is it different for the in-breath and the out-breath? And what's the texture of the breath like? Is it silky smooth, or slightly rough, or something else? It doesn't matter, but just noticing the texture without thinking about it, just the experience of the texture of the breath. And for the last few moments, just dropping any effort to do anything. Just sitting, noticing your direct experience, your experience of whatever's happening right now in each moment. Just acknowledging any distractions, but coming back to the sensations in the body, in your experience. I'm going to ring the bell for the end of this meditation in a moment, and as always, when I do, take your time to open your eyes and move your body. Be gentle with yourselves. There's no hurry.